So I'm here today in my yard, which is a bit of a difference from the shed, and today I'm going to start working on a new little project, but I'll show you what I've got going on so far. So what I've got here is a aquaponics setup, and instead of like the traditional IBC sort of system, I've got a pond, which is my holding tank. It's full of fish and all that kind of stuff, and got a few plants in there and that. And I've got another holding tank, and I've got Marin in there. See any of those little guys? They're usually hiding in all those little containers. Oh, there's one. How you going? I call the big one Bitey. So yeah, this is a cascading setup, and here's what you'd consider the grow bed for a traditional system. So this is like a cascading setup. So what happens is I've got a small pump here. This is only a 8-watt pump, and that lifts it up to this tank here. And then when this tank gets full, it overflows down this drain into the main grow bed, and that goes to the other side. And then there's a drain that runs behind there. It runs down this drain back into the main fish holding reservoir. Now, what's really cool about this system is that it's actually an off-grid system, in that I have solar panels here, and see the lead runs down. These are two 12-volt panels. I think they're 120 watts each. And then that goes down to a small charge controller down here and a battery. So I have two 12-volt, 12 amp hour batteries in there. So I've got 24 amp hour of power in reserve, 12-volt system, and they just have a little charge controller. It's just for like a pond fountain controller, and that just powers the pump. So when the sun's beaming down on my nice little chickens in the background, so when the sun is pumping down on my solar panels, it powers the pump and charges the batteries, and then at night time it runs straight off the batteries. So this system runs 24 hours, and it's self-sufficient and off-grid. Now I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to put a new system just here. So this is my sort of little hen house I've got here for my chickens, and basically I'm going to build a whole system, including new holding tanks and all, that fits in this region in here. You can't see it too close because the type of lens I'm using at the moment. So I'm going to basically build a system that goes from here over to there, and I'll have some holding tanks as well, so I can hold some rainwater for watering the rest of the garden. So I have some fruit trees here. That's a citrus tree, and I've got an apple, and then another kind of apple. I have a small peach tree here, which gives us quite a good yield. Then a lemon tree and a kaffir lime. The kaffir lime is really good for accent of flavors and stuff like that. And it's my chickens, Mushu, Jenny, and the last one, the big one, is called Barbara, because she doesn't take any shit. So over to the shed, and I'll explain how I'm going to put these together. Alright, today at the shed, it's something different. We're going to play with big boxes. So at my house, I have a little aquaculture set up, and we grow vegetables and all that sort of stuff. But in this current climate, I think it's probably more important to start producing a bit more food, because we'll be able to get it fresher, and we won't have to fight people in the toilet paper lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these two bulkies to make a small aquaponics setup. They should get a pretty decent yield. So my plan is to do this. This is the space I've got. in my backyard. I've got 5.3 meters. From here to here, there's a path here that runs to an existing setup now. I want to have 2 tanks for water retention to water my garden. Legally, I'm allowed to hold that much water in my property. And a tank here and a tank down here, and have the grow beds on top to span the gap. And in that gap, I want to build a new hen house for my chickens, because the hen house they've got at the moment is pretty small. So the idea will be that I'll build a little module that'll go in under here, and I can open the flap from the back to access it, because at the moment the hen house is just here and you have to go in the path and sort of lift the lid, and it's not really super ergonomic at the moment. So this is the layout I want to try and achieve. Now, to get one bulky into one bed, you have to pretty much chop the top off, remove the cage, and then do a bit of mixing around to get it in the format that you want. So that's my next move. I'm going to have to split the bulky up and start to reconfigure it. So all these containers are always in these cages, retained by these rods here. They're always either like kind of screwed in or bolted in or anything like that. And they sort of always go through a hoop, so that these things, if they were to sort of tip over or anything, they won't sort of spiral out of control and disappear. Fortunately, as well, another thing to note is this has a cam lock fitting on it, which is really, really awesome. So that's going to go at the bottom. Basically, I'm going to chop the top off of the cage and use it at the bottom, and use the bottom of the tub as the bottom and the top as the bottom of the grow bed. So what I'll do is I'll just start hacking into this, and I'll show you what I mean in the meantime. Alright, so you saw me cut a hole in the center there. That's for the drain. So that guy's going to be in the middle, and without the hole cut in the center, you wouldn't have a drain. So this is what you call the upper module for the grow bed now, and that cage will house the water tank. So all I need to do now is cut this, and then I get my grow bed out of it and my water tank. Now I've got my 2 pieces. So this guy is the tank that'll hold all the water, and this one is the grow bed. I'll hold all the plants. You see that I marked it around, and then I took it a bit further over, so the line of the steel will dictate my medium line, and then it'll give me a bit of height. Now these, it's just like growing pots in a plant. They don't need 100 meters of stuff to grow in. Now the drain itself is obviously in the middle. So when I set it up, you set up a ring on the outside, and it'll flow all the way from the outside into the center and then drop down. So what I'll do there is use the cap. This one is I'll use the cap and put a fitting into the cap, and then put it into my tank here. So it'll like drain straight down into the tank, and then a lift pump will lift it back up, and then it'll just recirculate. So now I just need to do the second one, and then I can start to mock it up, and I'll show you what I'm trying to get at. So this is the layout now. I've got the two grow beds welded together, and put the bracing back inside it, underneath it rather, and the two tanks, like one tank either side. Now the reason I've got it offset is because the center of the actual grow bed would have overlapped with the side of the tank. So this one here will just have to do an elbow and go inside there, but this one here can drop straight down back into the tank. So you may remember these things here that I took off that were holding the main tubs in. So I'm going to put them across the span here and just TEC screw them back in to add some reinforcement for that. So these are pretty strong. You would have seen me, it held my actual weight. So it shouldn't have any problems holding the weight of the grow bed. So this is measured out now at the length that I wanted of the 3280. So that'll be my whole span, and then I'll have two tanks, one there and one next to that for holding the water. So here it is all in position. Got my fish tank here, a dual grow bed here, another tank, it's one holding tank and the other holding tank. So all I did was sort of level off the ground, put a bunch of 600 paver slabs down, and all that's left now is what I'm actually going to do is clad it with some sheet iron, like some roofing iron, so that it will look sort of more like that guy over there, so our backyard doesn't look like an industrial wasteland. Unfortunately, I put the shade a little bit too high and it sort of touches our gutter, but that'll be alright. Very, very glary today, and they look very, very white. So yeah, I'll just bash that cladding on, and we'll see if it comes out any good. So after some cladding, the sheet tin, choose some recycled tin. This is what we end up with. It's looks pretty neat. Doesn't look too terrible. Just kind of looks like a tin fence. As far as the system goes, here's the ring I was talking about in there, and I've got holes drilled in the bottom of that, so that will fill up the space. And this is the drain system. So what the drain's made up of is the lid. So I got the lid and cut a hole in the lid, and then used a cap for 100mm pipe, and then a bit of 100mm pipe with holes drilled all through it as the strainer. And I used so the cap, and then the fitting here, and then an elbow on this one and a straight one on the other one. And then we get this bit that goes in here. Now that will set the height of the water, so the water in the container will fill to that height and then spill over down the drain into the other tank. And this part here goes over the top and fits into that like a socket, and you end up with it looking like that. So the reason that we do it this way is so that this cap can come off and we can service everything inside of there, so we can clean it out without all the grow medium sort of falling down into the lower tank.